Well, if you think drones are controversial, wait until you hear about killer robots. These machines take warfare to a whole new level. The robots would have a mind of their own, meaning they could pick and choose which targets to fire on. That means humans would almost completely be detached from the decision-making process and decide who should live and die. Now, these killer machines don't exist yet, but major powers around the world, including the U.S., are working on making them a reality. Human rights groups are now trying to ban killer robots from ever being used. Human Rights Watch is calling for an international treaty to stop the development and use of autonomous weapons. For more, I am joined now by Bonnie Docherty, of the International Human Rights Clinic at Harvard Law, and a senior researcher in the Arms Division of Human Rights Watch. Bonnie, welcome. So this all sounds like something out of a science fiction movie. How far is this from becoming a reality?
Well, most experts predict that within 20 to 30 years, these weapons could actually exist. And as you mentioned, precursors are already in existence and deployed or in development around the world.
Now, we've reported on a lot here at RT, the use of drones and how they have become a key part of military operations these days. Now, the UAVs, they fly without a pilot on board. What sets these killer machines apart from drones?
Well, drones continue to have a human in the loop, meaning that there is a person that decides when the machine should fire. With fully autonomous weapons or killer robots, they would determine not only identify a target, but choose to fire at will. As a result, it is not a problem so much with the targeting, but with the weapon itself.
Okay, so what would this mean in terms of accountability? I mean, if an autonomous machine makes the decision, who would be held accountable?
That's one of our major concerns. There really could be an accountability gap. For example, the commanders are rarely held responsible for the actions of their subordinates, except for in a narrow circumstance that would not be applicable here. Producers and manufacturers would only be held liable if they intentionally design a robot that would kill civilians. And punishing the robot at this stage is absurd. So that accountability gap would undermine deterrence and leave victims unsatisfied that anyone had been held responsible for their suffering.
Could you talk more about what exactly these machines, what they would be capable of? I know that they would, as we had mentioned, they would decide, they would fire on their own. Could they be able to distinguish whether or not somebody surrenders or whether or not somebody is not a threat? Or, I mean, is there a big possibility of these machines making errors?
Well, that's our concern. We believe they could not distinguish between a soldier and a civilian, or maybe even a combatant that has surrendered or one that has not. And that is because they lack certain human qualities, such as human judgment and human emotion, that would prevent them from complying with the law. In addition, they would undermine non-legal safeguards and would not show, for example, compassion to other humans. And therefore, their killing of civilians increases the burden of war on civilians.
Now, Bonnie, the argument in favor of such machines, and we see similar arguments today, people that defend drones, is that it saves military lives because you're not putting soldiers directly in harm's way. So if you look at it like that, could that be a benefit of this kind of technology?
That could be a benefit, and it's a laudable goal to reduce the casualties among the military. However, we believe that the cost to civilians would be too high. International law and practice is designed to protect civilians to the extent possible from armed conflict. And these weapons, these killer robots, would place the burden on civilians and, in fact, maybe make war even more likely.
Wow. And I know your organization is really at the forefront of making sure that this doesn't happen. Can you tell us what Human Rights Watch is doing to try to prevent this technology from being used?
Well, we've currently released a report this week, and we are calling for an international ban on the use, production, and development of killer robots. And we're also calling for national steps to be taken until an international treaty is possible. In addition, NGOs are starting to work together to work to ban these weapons, and so it'll be interesting to see how things proceed in the coming months and years.
What nations are, at this point, are involved in trying to move this technology forward?
Well, the U.S. is one of the leaders in this developing process. Other countries that have deployed precursors include South Korea, Russia, China, the United Kingdom, Israel, Germany, just to name a few.
Okay, and I mean, this is unprecedented. Obviously, we don't have anything like this in the battlefield today. How would this change warfare as we know it?
Well, it would be a revolution in warfare. It's taking weapons a step too far in dramatically increasing the burden of war on civilians and increasing the chances of civilian casualties. Civilians will always die in armed conflict, but this takes it to a whole new level and allows machines to make decisions about life and death.
Do you think, Bonnie, that, we're seeing the military is always looking for new advances? The newest thing right now is drones, and even they are becoming more advanced in their capabilities. So do you think that it's just kind of inevitable that machinery and weapons and the tools that the military uses around the world, inevitably that this is the direction it's going to go and that they're just going to become more advanced?
Well, this is definitely the direction it's headed in now. But that does not mean the direction can't change. For example, in the 1990s, nations gathered together to ban what's called blinding lasers before they even existed. We would hope that states would continue to do this with killer robots. The more nations invest in this technology, the harder it will be to persuade them to give it up. Therefore, we believe action needs to be taken now.
Okay, Bonnie, I guess lastly, how confident are you that you could stop the development of this technology and the use of it for moving forward?
Well, it will be a lengthy process, but we hope that non-governmental organizations will work closely with states and governments and militaries to put an end to this development of this technology.
Wow, really interesting. Bonnie, appreciate you coming on the show and telling us about this. That was Bonnie Dougherty, Senior Clinical Instructor at Harvard Law School's International Human Rights Clinic and Senior Researcher in the Arms Division of Human Rights Watch.